In today's episode, your working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Look around before you speak. I was grounded from my bike. So let's get started. Your working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. About 4 years back, I started a new banking job. All was well, just that the management was pretty strict with timekeeping, which was weird as we were back office. My experience was in a similar field at another bank, and we had flexible schedules and received time in lieu. But rules are rules, so I followed them. I learned my tasks and got to know the wider team. Anyway, about 4 months in, I started to realize my senior manager didn't like me. I'm pretty assertive as a person, and I do know how to stand up for myself. He hated it. I would speak up during the meetings, ask questions, give suggestions, and so on, while the team would stay quiet. The week everything went south, I was working overtime, which was, obviously, unpaid. On Thursday, I did nearly 2 hours of overtime. On Friday, I thought I'll leave a few minutes early as I was done for the week. My manager was off. I left 10 minutes early. On Monday, I come to work, and I got called into a meeting straight away. There were 3 of us in the room, myself, my manager, and my senior manager. Our conversation went as follows. My manager, I heard you left work early on Friday. Me, I did. I left 10 minutes early. Did you ask for permission to leave early? Me, it was 10 minutes. You know I did about 4 hours of overtime last week. Why are we having this conversation? Senior manager, because you left early without asking for permission. As a senior, you should be setting an example for the rest of the team. Me, is this a joke? Your working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., not 9 a.m. to 5:50 p.m. You shouldn't leave early without asking for your manager or my permission first. Is that clear? Me, got it. It's perfectly clear. I listened and started coming into the office at 9 a.m. and leaving at 6 p.m. on the dot. At first, they didn't realize what was happening, but the week after the meeting was the last week of the month. And let's say the last week of the month was intense. Especially the final day. The reports had to be completed, signed off, and submitted before the month's end. We covered multiple jurisdictions and would deal with Southeast Asia in the morning and the Americas in the evening. Our team was expected to work overtime due to this. Here comes Friday, the last day of the month. Showtime. I'm at my desk at 9 a.m. sharp. Most of the team have already been at the office for at least an hour. I, of course, have a cup of coffee from the cafeteria because I was a bit early. My manager looks at me and raises his eyebrow, but he doesn't say anything. Work. Break time, we had 2 20-minute paid breaks and 1 hour unpaid lunch. I'm the only person to go on my break. Lunchtime. Everyone was eating at their desks, while I go to meet my friends for lunch. On the second break, I once again leave my workplace and go for a short stroll around. Back to work. About 5:45 p.m., I get a call from one of the senior managers in the US. She needs the report amended. There were 4 of us on that call. I'm doing the amendments as we speak and closely monitoring the time. I see it's 2 minutes to 6 p.m. 1 minute. 6 p.m. SM2, rambling about the report. Me, apologies, but I have to stop you right here. SM2, yes? Me, it's 6 p.m. here. My day is over. SM2, huh? Me, as per my management, my working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., so I must leave now. Have a great weekend and we'll catch up on Monday. I logged off, got my coat, wished everyone a great weekend and left. It was 6:04 p.m. Both my manager and my senior manager were dumbfounded by what has happened. Looking pale and stare at me in disbelief. It was a glorious sight. I wanted to apologize to my senior manager that I wasn't able to leave at 6 p.m. on the dot, but I thought that would have been way too passive-aggressive, so I just left. I relaxed the rule a bit after a few months. Yet, I never did more than 30 minutes of overtime. Ironically, once my stakeholders understood that I will not be available for 10+ hours, they started collaborating earlier in the month. I would have most of my reports done and submitted by the last day of the month. Look around before you speak. I'm not sure if this story fits in this sub or not. I'm on mobile and I see people apologizing for formatting all the time, so I thought I'd go ahead and get that out of the way. This happened more than a decade ago, and I've had several seizures and hit my head more than a few times since then, so the finer details may be a little fuzzy. My story happens back in 08 or 09 in my sophomore year at my local community college. I was in sociology class and the topic for that discussion was religion. This is a small school in the Bible Belt, so I'm sure most students had their own preferences as to their beliefs. When the teacher, playing devil's advocate, asks how do we know if God is real or not, some guy in the middle of the class asked her in a tone like he was offended by her blasphemy, "Well, you didn't wake up paralyzed this morning, did you?" I almost did a backflip inside with fireworks and explosions going off in my mind from excitement. Within half a second I meekly raised my hand and said I did. I was the only paraplegic in the school the whole time I was there. We were about 3 months into the semester, so most of the school had at least seen me. A power chair zipping about at 6 miles per hour tends to stick out on a campus of about 3,000, so he knew I was in his class. You could hear a pin drop in that class. I gave about 4 seconds before I started laughing to release the tension. When I laughed, the whole class burst into laughter. Even the teacher was trying her best to suppress giggles. The poor guy was red as the Kool-Aid man. When class was over, I tried to catch up with the guy to thank him for that amazing setup, but I guess I must have embarrassed him too much, because even with my speed all the way to the bunny I couldn't find him. I guess I didn't think about it until a few years later, when I met up with another classmate from a different class where I pulled a similar stunt, only to the teacher this classmate said it was one of his funniest memories, so I told him this story. I'll tell that story too if y'all want. Sociology guy, if you read this, I'm sorry if I embarrassed you, but you gave me a setup I couldn't ignore, and I want to thank you for that. You gave me a great story. I was grounded from my bike. I've always been sort of a smart person, and I have always liked to push buttons or poke the bear, as they say. This story is no different. It's worth noting, when I learned to ride my very first bike, it wasn't my bike I learned to ride on. We didn't grow up wealthy, so I learned to ride on my sister's bike, and she was 4 years older than me. It was almost a full-sized bike, and for 4 to 5-year-old me, it was pretty big. But learn I did. After I had learned to ride bike, I got my very own bike for Easter. It was your typical boy's bike from the 90s, and inside that everywhere I could in my small little neighborhood. Until one day my dad grounded me for my bike. I don't remember what I did wrong, but he chained my bike up until I was to be ungrounded from it. Now, because I rode that thing everywhere, I'm sure why Dad's intention was I was supposed to be grounded and not allowed to go more than a house or 2 away. I took this as purely being grounded for my bike. So I naturally grabbed my sister's bike, she rarely rode, and went to my friend's house on the other side of the block. Lo and behold, about 30 minutes later, while I'm playing with my friend, my sister shows up. "You're supposed to be grounded. Dad is real mad." "Oh shit. You make Dad angry in our house." He was the disciplinarian. So I say goodbye, hop on the bike, and ride home. My dad looked at me and said, "Tokmak, where were you? You were grounded from riding the bikes." To which I innocent responded, "I'm grounded from my bike. That's why it's got the chain on it, and I took sister's instead." My dad just looked at me in awe. Looked at my bike. Looked at my sister's and just said, "You're now grounded from all bikes. Go inside." No big punishment. Just my dad learning how much of a smart person I really was and making sure to be a little bit more clear with future punishments. I still remember the look of disbelief on his face. But looking back, I don't think he was mad at all after he realized I learned how to work the system in my favor. Thanks for watching.